Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings and salutations, Hemp friends. This is your Hempy host, Tyler Hemp with HempAware Radio. I am very excited and privileged to have a special guest on today's show. His name is Cliff Thomason, and not only is he one of the first industrial hemp farmers in Oregon, turns out that he's going to be running for governor of Oregon as well. I'm hoping to get him on the line here in just a few minutes. We're going to talk about the 13 farmers that received licenses to grow industrial hemp in Oregon this year, and we're also going to discuss some of the challenges. I guess only about 5 of the licenses that were handed out were actually farmers actually put seed in the ground. So even though 13 licenses were delivered or handed out for these farmers, only 5 of them got to put seed in the ground. And Cliff Thomason and his group are one of those groups of farmers that were able to. And so we're going to talk about what his experience was like. Actually refer to their experience as deermageddon. Unfortunately, although they had, I think it was about 2.5 acres of hemp in the ground, they ended up only getting a few plants because the deers came and they ended up eating their entire crop. So hopefully Cliff is going to be calling in here, and we'll be able to ask him some crucial questions about what his experience has been with planting the seeds and getting them in the ground. Bear with us just a moment while we try to get him on the line here. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. Hopefully it'll be inspiring, and we'll be able to answer some questions for people that want to start investing in the hemp world and the hemp industry and hemp farming and get it going. So I am just going to make a pause here and be right back, and hopefully we'll have Cliff on the line. Thank you so much for your patience. All right, we got Cliff calling in here. So excited to be able to discuss hemp farming with one of the first hemp farmers, Cliff Thomason. Here he is. Cliff, thanks so much for joining us on today's show.
Hi, Tyler. How are you?
All is well. I'm really excited to share with our listeners what your experience has been. I'd love to, get into the meat of the show. We had a little bit of technical difficulties there, but hey, that's the nature of radio and internet and all that stuff. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you were initially introduced to hemp, and what inspired you to put some seeds in the ground and get a license to do the industrial hemp thing.
Well, back in March, I had someone approach me telling me about this opportunity for growing hemp in Oregon. He says the problem is that trying to get land and trying to get seed, because the state didn't set up any system to be able to get seed in, and it's extremely difficult. And I told him, I can get seed and I can get land. So we put a company together and got seed and got it planted somewhere around the 1st of May, and there we went.
Wow. And tell our listeners, what's the name of your company?
So we're the Oregon Hemp Company, or HempCo, and we've got, I think, 6 partners in this company. We're really trying to ramp up hemp production in the state of Oregon with a goal of planting 10,000 acres over the next 5 years. Right
on. So tell me, did you know about hemp initially before somebody came to you and said, hey, hemp is legal and all you need is some land and to get some seeds? Did you have the history of being in the hemp world, or was this a new venture for you?
No, this is absolutely a new venture, but it was a groundbreaking opportunity in Oregon, having no crops in almost 80 years, and the high demand nationwide. I thought it'd be great to be on the ground floor of it.
Right on. And so you have a background of real estate in some other areas, is that correct?
Yeah. I have business background and real estate background, so that's why finding land wasn't going to be a problem. As far as the seed ended up being more of a challenge and still is, but where there's a will, there's a way, I believe.
Exactly. So tell us, if farmers or people that are wanting to invest in the hemp industry and they want to start growing their own crops and be a part of this, are you somebody that they can contact in Southern Oregon or different parts of Oregon to purchase property if they want to start growing their own hemp?
Yeah, absolutely. They can contact me through orhempco.com. It's probably the easiest way. But I get inquiries, weekly. I've gotten calls and emails from as far east as Kentucky, looking for resources for seed and kind of what that process is.
Very good. So not only can you assist people with getting into a piece of property, but you can also help them with sourcing and getting them established. You've had this year to experience some challenges with the hemp. Tell us what did it take to get the seeds? If you can reveal to us maybe where you got the seeds or the process that it took to order them and what challenges you had to overcome.
Yeah, the state didn't set up a true research pilot program, and so they didn't have a way to, import seed using the DEA import process, which is still required for large-scale seed importation. So we had to be a little creative, and thank goodness for the Internet and Google, because you do enough searching for viable hemp seed, you can find it. However, that method is a little more expensive, whereas you can go buy, sterilized hemp bird seed for $1 a pound. We paid anywhere from $9 to $40 a pound for seed. But, each pound, has about 20,000 seeds in it. And so, the whole plan was just propagating our own seeds and growing that, because you should be able to get, hundreds of seeds, per plant. And so with that, you can, expand your acreage over time.
Exactly. So what strain or rather cultivar, because the term cultivar is used for industrial hemp, whereas medicinal cannabis, I know they use the term strains. What type of cultivar did you guys use, and how many acres did you plant?
Well, I planted about 3 acres, and actually the cultivar is unknown because we, had to source it, which was sourced elsewhere, and so on. We just refer to it as the Hippie Joe cultivar.
Right on. I was privileged and had the luxury and honor to come visit your little, what was left of the deermageddon farm. So tell us what happened. You got press, you got news coverage, because I guess deer came in and pretty much devoured your whole crop. Is that right? Yeah. They went through. We probably had 600 plants in the ground, and they came through and ate all of about 50 of them that were a little more protected. When you have a drought type situation, they found that it was a good source for moisture, for protein, and we didn't know that the farmers had witnessed half a dozen deer out there the night before, and of course if there's 6 deer during the day, there's probably 30 of them at night. Wow. And over a 2-night period, they kind of munched through them, and it looked like a field of Charlie Brown Christmas trees when they were done. Oh man! Well, that's unfortunate, Dan. But hopefully you'll have the wherewithal to plant twice as much next time and protect it twice as better.
Yeah, absolutely. They had, single deers had gone through before and never really messed with it, so we didn't think it was going to be, that much of an issue, and it turned out to be. But that's part of the research, on there. Mm-hmm. We've got deer fencing, all prepared for next year, and
I bet.
And so it's something that we're going to really, keep our eye on. But it did get national news because, most people nationwide still think hemp is marijuana, and so I think the headline was "Deer got the munchies and ate farmer's field."
Oh,
and
boy.
So it was kind of funny on the Bob and Tom show for about a week, but actually it helped us in the end only because harvesting this stuff has been interesting challenge. And when you're harvesting 50 plants, it's a whole lot easier than 500.
Exactly. So when you initially planted the seed, what was your intention? Was it to just kind of experiment and see what it produces, or did you intend to harvest the seed in particular, or for fiber? What was your initial intention for the crop?
Well, initially, it was going to be, as it was designed for, open pollinated, and actually proceed again to propagate more seed. However, we met great opposition with the medical marijuana farmers, of which in our county there's over 2,500 registered ones. So you take that and the black market farmers, and they're quite a force to deal with. And so we decided to practice good farming and change our farming method, and so we went to growing only females and to grow for flower.
Okay.
Because it's the same plant, and so the medicinal property of the cannabis plant, produces CBDs, which are a high demand, high value product, and so that's kind of what we're going for this year. And so much of it has to do with research on plant spacing, how much light, how much water. So we learned a lot, and we're going to be very successful next year.
Very good. So you intend next year, you're saying, to grow it for the high cannabinoid content. You're really going to go for that flowering aspect.
Yeah. So we have some specially bred seeds that will produce, high CBD and still be THC compliant under the 0.3% level. And so we have, a great opportunity this next year to really help reduce the overall cost of cannabis medicine on the marketplace.
So let's talk a little bit more about what you described, this challenge of the medical cannabis community. They're growing, and they have an issue with industrial hemp because of cross-pollination. And if hemp is close enough to medical cannabis, it will actually cause these other plants, these medical plants, to go to seed, which will then result in the THC levels dramatically plummeting. So So you're saying you were able to overcome their concerns by just growing female plants that are low THC. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, even though we have 10,000 acres of unused land here in our county, if you grew that much out in industrial hemp, there is that chance that the cross-pollination can occur. Now, our research, by having, we also had a greenhouse set up where we did do, cross-pollinating and doing some research on that. And it wasn't as great a fear. It just doesn't travel that far in our area, in our climate, that you would, let's say, on the Mediterranean, where you have a lot more wind patterns that will carry things further. We would have, so it really has to, you would have to have the perfect storm settings for the pollen to travel the distance that these people are concerned about. But rather than taking any chance, we're only going to grow, females outdoors.
Interesting. So do you think that things are going to only get better for industrial hemp and the industrial hemp market for farmers and processors do you see it only getting better, or do you see more challenges ahead of us?
Well, the challenge for the high-density hemp farming that you would expect, growing for fiber, for seed, I think is going to be probably corralled into, the upper two-thirds of our state in Oregon. The best outdoor growing for cannabis, in the country is Southern Oregon and Northern California. And so with so much at stake, hundreds of millions of dollars, already established in that marketplace, I think that, the push is going to be for growing for fiber and for seed is going to happen, in the mid to upper part of Oregon.
Interesting. So you do see it getting better. You see Oregon, Northern California are ideal growing climates for the medical cannabis. So what parts of Oregon would be ideal for the industrial hemp, for seed and fiber crops?
Well, I think, throughout the whole Willamette Valley, is going to be perfect for that, just because you have, so much open farmland, that's available. It's a great rotational crop. There are hundreds of thousands of acres that are available. And so I think that that's something we're going to, see once we have better availability of seed, more and more acres being grown. If I had enough seed for 5,000 acres, we could be planting that next year. And, short of, crossing, the path of the DEA, we're, going to still work with the process and hopefully with Oregon State University to start being able to bring in seed.
So what was the bill or the act that was passed? You mentioned that it was kind of not exactly clear as far as the commercial growth of industrial hemp for research purposes. How was Oregon? There was like 13 licenses handed out to farmers, and as far as I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but about 5 of those farmers actually got seed in the ground. Is that what you heard?
The way I understand it from the Department of Agriculture is there was 13 original licenses issued. Due to lack of seed, 2 of them turned their licenses back in, so there's 11 licensed farmers, and that only 9 put any type of plants in the ground this year. Okay. So kind of a dismal first year, but, initially their licensing in Oregon was $1,500 for 3 years license, and though that seems a little steep up front, that it did drive away some people because it is an agriculture crop and they're treating it, differently than an agriculture crop, and they didn't give any support for sourcing seed, and so that drove a lot of people away from even participating. And then in the legislative session, there was a House bill that was going through the legislature that was trying to put moratorium in certain areas on growing and trying to limit, put a lot of limitations on hemp in fear of, marijuana, cross-pollination. So, and that scared a lot of people off, that when you had a legislature that was not being, pro-hemp and rather, instead just, favoring, being pro-marijuana, whereas, we believe, the coexistence is key to the success of both programs.
Now, what is the current state or status of medical cannabis in Oregon? I've heard it's been medically accepted. You can go get a prescription, and then you can go to a dispensary and get your medicine. What's happening? I heard things are changing, and Oregon's going to be shifting over to recreational. Has that happened, or what's going on with that?
No. They're going to allow both types of dispensaries in place. So a recreational, dispensary and a medical. So currently, they've allowed temporarily medical dispensaries, if they choose to sell to the recreational market, while they're still writing the rules. The fear amongst most of the medical dispensaries is that they're going to do away with medical dispensaries and just have recreational because they feel the lawmakers feel that that's really what it's all about anyways. And, and those in the medical community, disagree with that completely. So it's, we have a short session at the legislature coming up in February, and I'll be curious to see if there's any other additional changes toward either industry.
Right.
But,
and speaking of legislature, you're running for Oregon State Governor this year, is that right?
Well, the Independent Party of Oregon, just received major party status a few months ago in Oregon, which means that they'll have a primary, and just like the Democrats and Republicans, and they'll also be three candidates for all major offices from here on out. And being a registered independent, I thought that it was important to throw my hat in the ring and bring attention to the hemp industry, the cannabis industry, as a way for Oregon to help their economy and create jobs throughout the state. One of the problems in Oregon is that they're only part way in on cannabis. And by that I mean, they allow dispensaries, they allow the growing of it, they allow the recreational use of it, recreational growing of it, but they still haven't provided the banking, for the industry. And, it's my belief, you're all in or you're not. And I think that it's important that we find a way for the state to ensure banks protection from federal seizure of assets. And I think that would go a long way, to bringing, the whole black market, into the open market if they were afforded those protections.
Right. So you feel running for governor will put you in a position to have influence and to be able to connect with specific people that are able to change laws, and you'll be able to be in a position of leadership to educate people about the power, the economic power of cannabis, not only, as far as food, shelter, clothing, but economically, what an amazing opportunity that you have as running for governor to represent the state of Oregon and get out there and start connecting and rubbing shoulders with other senators and governors and be able to influence them. I'm really looking forward to supporting you on that journey, and I appreciate your tenacity and courage to step up to the plate. Remind our listeners, what are your websites? How can people contact you? And what's your governor website? What's your hemp company website? And if you have a real estate website, I'd love for you to share that with us.
Well, our industrial hemp website is orhempco.com, orhempco.com, and so my candidate race, is makeoregongreat.com, because that's the intention of running, is to find ways of turning it around here and to make Oregon great. And, Oregon's been a leader for so many years in so many different things, and we've recently, I think, fallen to the side. And I think it's important to lead the conversations nationwide and not follow them. So makeoregongreat.com is a great site. I hadn't mentioned, in the political world, we are statewide gathering signatures on an initiative called the Oregon Lottery Local Control Act that would, if passed, if we got enough signatures, got it on the ballot next November, people had a chance to vote on it, would redirect 50% of Oregon lottery dollars back to the counties they came from.
Wow.
For local decision-making on a billion-dollar industry. And currently there is no local decision-making on how that money's spent. And so a lot of counties are really getting shorted by having money leave their counties, go to the state for them to decide how it's spent, and currently they're not spending it appropriately. So, and that's lotterylocalcontrol.com, if people want to see that. So, yeah, kind of got my hands full, but enjoying it.
Right on. Well, it's been so awesome having you on today's show. For our listeners, if you want to visit HempAware.com/radio, you can visit all of the archived hemp episodes. And if you have iTunes podcast library, just type in the word HempAware, all one word. And if you have any questions, if you want to have specific topics discussed, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love your questions. For our listeners, we just have about 4 minutes left. Cliff, I'd love for you to share a couple of ideas as far as what can Oregonians, the local Oregonians, do to help raise awareness about hemp, industrial hemp, and cannabis, and then as well as nationally, what can people do on a federal level today? What's one action step or a couple of things that they can do to raise awareness about hemp, change the laws, and really get things going for the hemp industry? What do you recommend people do today, that one action step or a couple action steps that they can take to contribute to the movement?
Well, in Oregon, it's contacting your representative or senator. And by contacting, email and phone calls generally aren't enough. If you can find where they're at and meet with them and express, your concerns or express your desire to have things change to make it easier to grow this product, I find that most effective. The House bill that you mentioned earlier, I spent a lot of time up at the Capitol and talking with the representatives and senators directly. And after the bill failed, I had one of them reach out to me and say it was because I was there, because, there was actually a face before the issue. And so I think that that's really important. On a federal level, our representatives from Oregon did a great job to get the 2014 Farm Bill passed, including 10 states, in the production of industrial hemp. And I think that everyone, wherever they are, to send the emails, to make the phone calls to their members of Congress, in the House and or Congress and the Senate, and make them aware that this is a viable industry that needs to be tapped. We don't need to be importing $1 billion worth of hemp products into the U.S. every year. We need to be growing it ourselves. And this is an opportunity. We have not been able to use American ingenuity in relationship to hemp. And so if we can grow it, we can also grow the innovation and create things that we never even thought of if we're just given the opportunity.
Exactly, and that's what this is all about. It's really about bringing it home, and just like the hemp documentary, if you haven't seen it already, check out Bringing It Home. Google it, the hemp documentary, and just as Cliff mentioned, write letters, write emails, make phone calls, set appointments with your representatives. Go to the website votehemp.com. And you can actually get formed letters that are already pre-written for you. Just put in your email, your contact information. If you need a little assistance, check out votehemp.com, and there's those form letters that you can fill out. Cliff, it's so awesome having you on today's show. I really appreciate you being on the forefront of this, and hopefully we can have you on next year when you're getting seeds back in the ground and discuss what's coming up for the future. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. Have a great day.
Right on. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is your Hempy host, Tyler Hemp with HempAware Radio. Like I said, check out HempAware.com/radio to visit our past hemp episodes. And if you want to get yourself a hemp book, increase your knowledge and information, HempAware.com/book. Get a copy of The Emperor Wears No Clothes or The Great Book of Hemp, Hemp Lifeline to the Future. There's so much information out there. Get hemp-educated and empower people's hemposphere because it's important. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make it a great day.